Hey everybody, welcome to another episode of the Business Barbershop podcast. I am Chris.
I'm Keane.
And today we're going to talk about leadership. Before we get to that, if you like the show, if you want to hang out with us some more, don't want to miss any episodes, then hit the subscribe button. I don't know, hit like, whatever. If you have questions or you think we're dumb, send us a comment. We'll take good comments and we'll take negative comments. We'll just take a comment, period. So, without further ado, actually, before we get into this leadership stuff, there is one thing I wanted to talk about real quick, and that is so we've been talking about, okay, I'm thinking about trying to buy this accounting practice. It's been something I've been talking about for a long time.
Yeah. And you're not thinking of, like, are you thinking about buying an existing one?
Yes.
Okay.
Yeah. Because I want to have people. I need CPAs.
I might have some leads to some firms that are for sale. If you want to talk.
Yep. So I need some CPAs. I have like a pretty specific buy box.
Okay.
Because of what I'm.
Are you going to finance any of it, or is you going to do cash only?
Yes.
Cash only.
No, I'm going to do. It depends on what the sales price is.
Okay.
It depends. Like we've talked about. I've talked to you. I've talked to some other people about sort of coming in on it with me in some kind of way. So it really kind of depends on how all of that shakes out on what happens. Mm-hmm. My guess is, though, it'll be cash finance in some way, whether it's like a seller note or just like SBA loan or something. But as I have been like really getting more serious about this lately, it's just like, I'm gonna look up in 2 years if I don't do something and be like, this, I'm a fucking idiot, because it's like right in my wheelhouse, and because it's very much what I do now, right? It's just a different type of service. But I am not a CPA, right? So I was like, well, how's that gonna work? Is that even possible? Because a lot of the listings say CPA buyer only, this type of stuff, right? And so I was curious about the process. I was curious about whether or not it was even possible, and I went to YouTube.
Okay.
So the reason I wanted to mention this is that if you are thinking about doing something, if you are not sure where to go or what to do, there is so much amazing free information out there that
it's ridiculous.
It's on you if you don't go there.
Yep.
I literally typed in, buy a CPA or buy an accounting firm, not a CPA, or something like that, right? Mm-hmm. I stumbled upon this interview of this guy who he's not a lawyer either. He's just a business guy. Bought a CPA practice, like doing almost exactly what I want to do. And he's done like 15 interviews where he talks about how he found the business, how he bought the business, how he financed the business, how he onboarded everybody, what problems he's had in the first 12 months, whether his expectations were met, the things that he wish he knew before, the things that he was right about. It's like literally almost a course on how to do this. And I think a lot of times people just get so stuck, like, I don't know what to do or I don't know where to go. There's an interview out there probably on every single thing that you could ever want to do, where it kind of teaches you the ropes, so I just wanted to like point that out, I guess. Then I went and, like, he's got he's on Twitter, he's on LinkedIn, so I just went and like followed him, sent him a message, and he still talks about stuff pretty much every day on what he's doing. And it's just like so much information out there that to say you don't know how to do something is whack.
Here's how good the information is on YouTube. If there's something you don't know how to do, and you go to YouTube for the answer, if the top 3 options don't perfectly hit what you're looking for, you should actually be kind of annoyed and pissed. I've had that experience.
Yeah.
Where I'm like, that's kind of annoying and stupid. That's this is the best version of it. I get annoyed when I don't find
Oh yeah.
the perfect review of a product or the perfect know-how of a specific. And we're talking about the most obscure, crazy shit. Like I was trying to look up like different ways to try to like fix potholes on gravel roads.
Yeah, totally.
And we did learn stuff and we did apply it to one of our properties. But I remember thinking to myself like, I seen products for like these like paver products that like these what are they called? I'm drawing a blank. This is what happens. You don't get enough fucking sleep. Pervious pavers.
Mm-hmm.
I remember my dad talked about it once, and when I actually saw the pervious paver, like it's like these really strong grids that meant that you can drive over them with shit, and you kind of put it down, you put gravel over it, and it kind of holds things up, but then they can still be pervious. I don't know. I don't fucking know how that shit works. But I remember seeing that stuff at like the Home Depot, and then like trying to and wondering how come there isn't like videos about how this could be part of your, I mean, I could probably find some about how to install it across the entire driveway, but it seemed like it could be part of the solution for some of these pothole things. It may be my problem is I'm trying to make it be the wrong tool for a certain solution, but the way it felt like it should have been functional for something I was trying to use it for.
Yep.
And I couldn't find anything about what I was trying to do. Anyways, I was running pretty far down the rabbit hole and I was annoyed by it. But my point is that is from the experience of going there so often, from how to restain a wood door or table and make it look beautiful again, to how to bake an amazing cake, or like most of the time you can just get the perfect answer. I even was trying to look up what like a chip seal road was. My dad was explaining this, like this kind of tar and chip type. And not only could I find videos about it, but I found like what was probably like a 50-year-old video that wasn't just like here's what it is. It's literally step by step exactly how to do it.
Yep.
With like, it was clearly just a digitized recording of what was probably like an entire VHS tape. It was that long, and it literally walked you through every single thing you're supposed to do. If you don't know what a chip seal road is, this is how they used to make roads like 100-something years ago. They basically just take some gravel, pack it, pour some hot oil tar on top of it, put another thin layer of gravel over it, and they kind of just repeat that a couple of times with like these compact things. It's like gravel, oil, gravel, pack it, repeat a couple of times, and that's good for and it'll last 50 years with maintenance, and also and it can last forever with maintenance actually, and just repeat the process or just patch up little areas. But it's only rated for I think around like 30-40 miles an hour for speed, so it's not really for highway driving.
Yeah.
But my dad had recommended it to one of my properties. My Angle Lake property has this long gravel road that leads from the main street down to the lake, and it's an acre property, but it's like standard lot width about, so it's very long and skinny. Yeah. So that road's pretty long. Yep. It's like, yeah, he's just chip sealed this thing. I'm like, I have no idea what the fuck you're talking about. But he's been in construction since my whole life and before then, and the company he worked for beforehand did a lot of civil work. And when I could read, when I researched it, after he told me about it, I could see that certain cities and counties still use it now, depending on, the traffic that's going on those roads and whatever. So of course it would work fine for my private property. Right. People are driving, 10, 15 miles an hour tops on a private, it's really just a long driveway. Yep. We're fine. So
definitely. I mean, we talk about real estate in here. We talk about business all the time too. Like if you want to figure out how to wholesale a property, there's 1,000 videos out there on that.
Wholesale has been a hot word in real estate investing, and
I'm just saying whatever it is you think you might want to do, you don't necessarily even need to go buy a course. If you find someone that knows what they're talking about, and you can tell pretty quickly if they do, just go watch all their stuff. Like you're gonna get nuggets here, you're gonna get nuggets there. Sometimes they will also do this step by step. This is how you do it. If you're gonna be running Google ads, if you're gonna be running Zillow ads, whatever, like go there, do some research, and learn about how the process works before you start jumping in and doing a bunch of stuff. You know, it's just so much knowledge and information out there. Everybody shares it that it's kind of on you if you don't go check it out and things don't go the way you want.
Yeah.
It's on you.
Yeah. Totally.
So anyway, let's talk about leadership.
Yeah.
I just want to drop that little nugget because I was listening to stuff today, and I've been listening to stuff, the last few days, and so good.
Yeah.
So good. So.
I kind of had, there's two ideas I had about leadership that I wanted to chat about, but remember we're talking about this specifically for
leadership in business, right?
Leadership in business, right? But I did want to put this out there as a beginning. I will hear people tell me, I don't want to deal with the responsibilities of being a leader. And then they have kids. And my reaction to that is leadership at work is practice for the home. Leadership at home is practice for the workplace. Like, as a person who is, I am the head of my household, father to my children, I get, well, let me take a step back first, say this. For everybody who is a aspiring entrepreneur, who has not been a manager, business owner, or whatever, VP, I don't care what title we have, but you're in a business leadership position where people directly report to you and you are part of the hiring, firing decisions of those people. I hate to say it, the shit is very common. Do not assume that adults do not need to be managed and disciplined like the way we sometimes picture it with children. Would you agree?
I agree 100%.
I mean, this is why I find it so shocking that people avoid leadership in the workplace, because I'm like, but you have kids.
The way that I would describe it is it's similar, but if you don't feel comfortable saying it like that, what I think about is, there's like a standard of performance that I want out of my team, and it's my job to hold everybody to that standard.
Yeah.
Because if you don't, then they don't believe that is the standard, and they will make up their own standard, and people have different standards. You know what I'm saying?
It's really important that people respect that whatever standard you set is going to be what's really followed. And good employees won't say they want it. They just want it, and they will appreciate it. If you get rid of a bad employee, they may not out loud say, I'm so glad you did it. But deep down inside, they're thinking, I'm glad that my boss has got a finger on the pulse. And the longer you let a bad employee stick around, the more likely it is a good employee will leave because they don't like the standards, and they always have to pay the price for having people that are subpar. Just remember that.
Yeah.
The price you pay for poor leadership is far more expensive than what you think it would be.
Right. And where it kind of feels like you're raising kids sometimes is you can't say it once. You have to repeat the standard over and over and over again forever. Mm-hmm. Because people will drift. Yep. Like we have like an all hands meeting every Monday. I talk about our core values every single week.
Yep.
And it starts to sink in because something will happen and they will drop one of the core values, like in the chat. You know what I'm saying? Mm-hmm. And it's those type of things that I think begin that process. And I think the second part, and we'll get into what you're talking about too, but I think the second part of that is once you say the core values, then you also have to demonstrate the core values.
Right.
Right. You can't say like no excuses, which is one of my core values. And then when something goes wrong, I'm like, Brenda over there just totally fucked it up. It ain't my fault, and I think that
there's so many rules and best practices when it comes to leadership and management. We will definitely not even touch 10% of them on the show, but we'll get some high level stuff out there for sure. Yeah,
let's go.
So
you had a path you wanted to go on this bad boy.
I thought what we would talk about is a little bit about the different kinds of levels of a leadership, right? Now, this is talked a little bit about a book from John Maxwell called The 5 Levels of Leadership. I'm not going to get all 5 levels. I can't remember all of them, to be honest with you. But I want to go high level because I want people to kind of envision what their path in leadership could be. Now, here's the thing, right? I remember when I first read that book, my first thought was like, oh, I want to get to level 5 leadership. And right now in my life, I'm like, no, I'm perfectly fine never reaching, because like level 5 leadership is like fucking like Abraham Lincoln, Steve Jobs, like this kind of like iconic level where people already recognize who you are and you have this influence on this level that shifts the way people see things and do things. I think that Elon is probably at that level right now where it's like people just gravitate and just hang on every word they say. Warren Buffett would be an example of that, right?
I would agree.
And I don't think I want that many people to even be listening to me, to be honest with you. There's a certain, like, I know this sounds weird, but there's I actually had reservations about doing this podcast for a while because of part of that reason. Like, there's a certain amount of, like, I like teaching, I like helping people, I want to make a difference, impact to the world, but I don't, like, in Steve Jobs' words, do I want to leave like a dent in the universe, make a mark before I'm gone? Do I want to make one so big that I'm always remembered forever? The life that you live,
right,
to make that happen is not necessarily the life I want to live. I don't want everyone to recognize who I am. I think it's really cool when I see stories about like Keanu Reeves like dressing like super normal and just like riding the bus somewhere, But my reaction is like, look, but he's the one. Everyone else is just like flooded with people. Can I get your autograph? Whatever. Like it usually, like when you get to the level of like awareness, and look, the closest I've ever gotten is that like I'm really well known in my local market in this industry, and in certain years even more so. And it always feels odd to me. Like some people like it, right? Some people will say, I want to be famous.
Yep.
Like I'll have moments where you meet people that you don't even know, you've never met them in your life, and they've already formed some opinion of who you are. I'm like, oh, you're a little different than how I pictured or whatever. And I'm like, how did you picture me? Because like we've met, this is like our first time we ever met, and I had zero pretense of what you would be like, nor did I ever think about what your personality would be like. So what does it mean to be a person where when people meet you, they already had an expectation of what you might be like, is the first sign of like people are aware of who you are, which is important for being able to grow your business and brand. And, there's a lot of benefits that can come from it, but there's also like, if you go too far with it, it can start to take away from certain things. Right.
100%.
I think my life is pretty great. I don't, I'm trying to find a way to to me, it's, I'm just spinning plates. I don't want more plates. I'm just keeping the ones I got spinning. Right. So let's go through some of them. So the first one, which I do believe is one of the most important ones to talk about, which he does talk about in the book, is the positional leadership role. Yep. This is actually a trap. It's funny because he talks about these in these books. They don't. I see a lot of entrepreneurs get stuck in the first level of leadership. And so I actually want to spend more time talking about like just from the first level to the next kind of like tier, like the 2 or 3 levels that he talks about in that book. The problem with young entrepreneurs is that if you're relatively successful as a business owner at a younger age, you never learn what it means to work underneath poor leadership, and so you don't recognize your poor leadership when you're imposing onto your people. Right. I can't tell you how many times in my life I've met a person who was pretty successful, made pretty good money, ran businesses, and then when I worked closer with them, was surprised at how poor their leadership management was. But it becomes more apparent that it has to do with the fact that they've never had to follow someone before. Right. There wasn't a conscious decision to grow themselves as a leader because they never had anyone leading them.
I think, yes, I agree. And by the way, so I found this thing. It does a really good job of like a 1-sentence summary. Right. So for position, it says people follow because they have to.
Yes.
Like you're the manager. Like they got to listen to you because you're the manager, right?
Yep.
I think what happens sometimes too at this level 1 is you define leadership by like some caricature. Like you see, oh, Steve Jobs was a dick, so like I'm gonna be a dick. That's what successful people do.
Right.
And if you're not careful, you're like you said, you never fall out of that. You just think you just basically bossing people around all the time. What you find though, I think, if you're in that position long enough, is that it doesn't work as the way that you want it to.
And you only have a certain quality of employee that will follow you.
That's what I'm. Yes.
When it's positional only.
Yep. Because people will leave.
So what's the second one? Give me one line for the second one.
Number 2 is permission. People follow because they want to.
Yes. So the permission level he's talking about, this is where you start to gravitate towards getting better employees. So if you picture your business, right? You picture that the decision, like here's a perfect good example. If your people working for you were all people who were unemployed looking for a job, and you went through the normal interviewing process of candidates, and at the time they worked for you, they either were doing a job that was unrelated to the work you're doing, so you're the first person to hire them in that field, or they were unemployed. If your business only consists of employees that you hired that way, that's a bad sign that you might be a positional leader. The permission level, I would say, is like, imagine, okay, I think here's a good analogy. Think of like an NFL team, 53-man roster, I think is what it's 52 or 52? 52-man roster. So there's a 52-man roster for a NFL pro team. Now, there are some veterans that are under contract. There are some rookies that are trying out. Some of them maybe like early draft picks are pretty much guaranteed to play or be on the team for a couple of years. Some lower draft picks that might get cut. And then there might be some undrafted free agents and whatever, right?
Yep.
And there's a bunch of people trying to make the team, yep. Right? So as the leader, those people trying to make the team, you hold that positional leadership over them on the highest level, right? Now, even with that will happen with every team every season. That doesn't change the fact that when Peyton Manning was cut from the Indianapolis Colts and it was a free agent, right? Everyone was swooning him to come play for them, right? This is that first sign of like, hey, it's not always you who gets to decide who plays for your team. And if you have a solid vision, a solid culture, solid plan to win, you can attract the best people, right?
That's right. Part of it too, I think, when we're talking about just regular people, is also being able to show them that they are going to get to where they want to go,
right,
by working with you.
That's right.
Like whatever that might be. You want to buy a house, you want to live a comfortable life, you want to enjoy work. Like these are some of the things I think people aspire to.
Right.
In what you want to be challenged. Do hard, like be good at something in your field.
Mm-hmm.
Like I think you being able to sort of produce that vision. I think vision is the perfect word.
Right.
For what you are going to create, both for them and for the team and for everything, I think that is where you start to get some of that buy-in from people, and they that's where you reach that level too, I would think.
Right. Well, so the next stage I was going to talk about, it kind of falls off the map of what you're talking about, but what is level 3? What is it called, level 3 again?
Level 3 is production. People follow because of what you have done for the organization.
Yeah.
Results. So its position is rights, permission is relationships, production is results.
Yeah.
Right. So like you have demonstrated that you can take people where they want to go. Mm-hmm. And I think so then people want to
Yeah, that does definitely relate to where I was going with it. I think that the level 3 leadership looks like this. Like when you first start off, you're hiring checker pieces. Right?
Yep.
At level 2, you're able to recruit chess pieces. Right? Level 3 is you have a full chess team and you know how to make them play.
Right. And you've shown that you can do
yes.
that, right?
If you decide not only can I positionally choose a person to play bishop for me on my team, we will win.
Right.
And you can and if you follow my leadership, we will produce. Right.
What immediately came to mind to me, it would be like Nick Saban.
Mm-hmm.
Right? Because not only
until recent times, Bill Belichick.
Yes.
Mm-hmm.
Like not only can they describe the vision, they win championships.
You almost actually know what it is based on the way they say it. I mean, think about all the years. I mean, look, obviously there's a discussion of like who was more important between Brady and Belichick, and right now I think Brady's winning that contest. But still, I think Brady and Belichick together really set that culture. Because think about it, like I'm not a Patriots fan. I mean, we're in a room where we got all the Seahawks stuff in here. We lost them in that Super Bowl. I paid like $7,000 a ticket. It was like horseshit, right? Yeah. Maybe it was 10. I can't remember. It was painful. Anyways, but think about how many teams in the NFL have a term like the Patriots. It's called like the Patriot way.
Right.
Right. And players talk about it. Yeah. Players who've never played for them have talked about it.
I think also it doesn't necessarily have to be a single person, Like that would be
the Yankees are also like that too. Yeah. It's like we don't care how
It can become organizational too, right? Because Alabama was really good before Nick Saban.
Right.
They weren't. I mean, he kind of took them to a next level, but once he retired, that became the job that.
Did he ever take a new job yet?
He's not. He's literally retired.
He's like retired.
Gonna go do TV and chill. Like, I think like Peterson from Washington. once they start to get that TV money, I think they're just like, what am I doing? I think for those old school guys, Saban, Peterson, I think this like new NIL stuff, like the way that kids can transfer in and out very easily, and like you're turning over I think they just were like, I don't want to do that,
Yeah.
like I'm done.
Yeah, it's almost like it's like a watered down version of the NFL.
Yeah, yeah.
If you want to do that, it might as well be
it's
NFL.
hard to create culture. It's hard to do, I think, a lot of things you want to do.
Mm-hmm.
It's also hard. Here's the thing, though, too. I think what that does, to sort of bring this back to this leadership thing, is in some ways it takes away even that first level of leadership, that positional leadership, because you say something that a kid takes the wrong way because they're 18 and they're a douche, basically.
Right.
They can leave.
Yeah.
Like you don't have the, like, they're not hope, like, whereas how it used to be, you can't transfer, or you transfer, you got to sit for a year,
And there's times where those kids will act like shitheads, and the coach should be able to discipline them, and they may not like it at the moment, but it actually ends up being good for them.
100%.
I can't remember the player who it was, but I remember there was this one player that was playing for John Wooden, famous NCAA coach. I think he won more championships than any other coach, right, at UCLA.
Yeah, he won like 11, I think.
Yeah.
A lot.
And I can't remember who the player was, but I remember the player specifically telling the story to him, like, Coach, I'm your best player. Why don't you play me? And his answer was like, you're right. You are definitely our best player, but our team plays worse when you play on the court.
Yep.
And we've tried to, you see it in practice. We run the plays, we talk about what we do, and you don't want to do it because you're the best player. You're not allowing me to coach you the right way. And so I just have to.
You can sit on the bench.
You guys sit on the bench.
Right.
Right. And it wasn't like and it's so interesting. The way he said it was in such a way that was like, hey, I'm not trying to be a dick, but the disciplinary act was done in a very matter-of-fact way of like, hey, just, let's take it from perspective. There's no anger in this discussion, right? I agree with you. You're the best player, and we just play worse when you're playing.
Yep.
And, until we play better with you playing, then I can't play my best player, right? And there's times there's an impact as a leader that you can lay on someone where you can say something so simple and it connects with people. The one word that always gets tied to leadership is influence. Influence. And one thing I've learned about influence is that influence is used in lots of other things. It's talked about in like sales, right? But I think that it's really connecting with people and able to, I think the best leaders veer the path of the people that they are introduced to. Like when you talk to someone, does their path shift? Because look, every person has the right and power and means to live whatever life they want, make whatever choices they want. And if they walk a different path because you were put in their life, that is a sign of influence, right? And leaders should strive for making positive impacts on the path that the people that they lead come down, right?
I agree.
And so, but yeah, I would highly recommend it. Level 4, I think he talks about like multiplying other leaders, right?
Yep. Level 4 is people development, which is people follow because of what you have done for them. Mm-hmm. Reproduction.
Yeah.
That's what I call it, what that one is.
I think that the difference from being level 3 to level 4 is this. Being a level 3 leader is like being Peyton Manning on the field. We have got all of our positions. We're able to recruit the best people. You follow. You like the person you're following, right? They're in a position of leadership, and we together produce, right? Level 4 would be like Andy Reid. That look how many Hall of Fame quarterbacks he has coached over the years, right? He's recreating the leadership, and then there's this leadership tree falling underneath you.
That's what I was gonna. So
right?
Here's how I would describe it: it's the coaching tree.
Yeah.
So like, look at Bill Belichick, right?
Right.
Or like George Walsh.
Bill Walsh.
Bill Walsh.
Bill Walsh.
Right.
Went to Seifert.
You look at some of these old.
Even Holmgren's coaching tree is pretty big, and Holmgren's underneath the Walsh tree.
Like you ever look at these team photos that are old, and you're like, there's 8 head coaches on this staff.
Oh yeah.
When
George Seifert took over for Bill Walsh, Holmgren was a quarterbacks coach. Mariucci, Andy Reid, and Gruden were all coaches underneath that tree.
Yeah. So for me, I think that's where that I think is a pretty good analogy. Where you're creating sort of like more of yourself.
Right.
Like more leaders in a way. Like
even that short stint that Carroll did spend a lot of time being in the Seahawks, but there's a handful of people that came underneath him, right? That became defensive coordinators and head coaches, right? It didn't grow as fast, and he wasn't in that position that long. But yeah, that coaching tree is a good example of that. The level 5 one, I'm always a little hazy on it. I feel like it's kind of like iconic, kind of like role.
Level 5 is pinnacle. People follow because of who you are and what you represent. Respect.
Yeah.
That would be like that. I think the examples that you gave are pretty good.
Yeah. I think modern day people that when they say something, people listen closely. I think Warren Buffett fits that. I think Elon Musk fits that.
I think you're right. You may be able to reach that like in your industry if it's something that you aspire to.
Right.
You know what I'm saying? Like I mean they're like some of the coaches that you are, the coaching program that you're in, that there might be an example like that because they own their own businesses too, right? Or they did. I mean,
yeah.
And so they become sort of iconic in the mortgage industry.
Right.
Because they've been able to create and grow a very, very successful business and then also sort of show other people how to do the same. Mm-hmm. So I think you can have it.
You could spend years, decades just learning how to go from level 1 to level 2 and level 2 to level 3. I would say for most business owners, you can read a book, you can aspire for levels 4 and 5. But it's okay to be like, I think that all of us should aspire to number 3. At the minimum.
Agree.
Level 3 is basically a well-oiled machine with a leader leading everyone that has their specific positions. They have some of the best people in those positions following the leader, and they produce.
Right.
And that would be like, I think an example of that in the business world could be like, maybe you have a real estate team. You're the best salesperson. You have an amazing. I think John would be a good example of that for this real estate team. John By, right? He's not opening his own brokerage. He's not multiplying how many independent brokers who build their own teams yet. He does do a little bit of that through his coaching, being a coach for the core. But in his day-to-day practice, right, he's doing it primarily within his team. So he touches a little bit on both. I think that example that in a different field might look like you've grown beyond being a great doctor. You don't just lead some of the best nurses and medical assistants, but now you have a clinic, right, that has other doctors in it, right? But the level above that, level 4, would look more like you own multiple clinics, right? And there's multiple doctors, multiple clinics, right? And then level 5 in that field would be like Dr. Oz.
Yeah, correct.
Yeah.
I guess I have a little bit of aspiration for level 4 in a way, only because let's say I have like 3 offices, for example. Mm-hmm. I would want to have a me kind of like overseeing those 3 offices.
Sure.
And then do 3 more offices and have another me doing that.
I could see that. I was growing my business in a similar fashion, and I didn't like from the outside looking in, I didn't like what it felt like for the customer to grow a business that scale because I'd be further out of touch.
Yep.
And so I really liked specializing in that space, right?
Yes, you are high touch.
Yes, high touch.
Low touch.
And there were goals. I used to have those similar goals because of financial goals. So I tried to see if it was worth playing in that space.
Yep.
And I'd rather stay in a very high level 3 and then reach level 3 in other spaces, which achieve the same goal.
Totally.
I want to have a high touch, smaller practice, be in touch with my clients, make really good money in it, and add lots of value, help them on a high level, take that revenue, invest it in spaces that, basically get them all my financial goals. And, I'm basically just level 3 my rental portfolio, or level 3 with my Airbnbs, level 3 with my branch. And as I wind down over the time, how much time I spend in my branch, the other ones are more set it and forget it, like what you could probably picture with your business. And I can achieve my financial goals through that. And so, I'm happy with it that way.
Yeah. Yeah. For me, it would be less set it and forget it. It's just more of you need to create leaders on your team because you run out of time.
Yeah.
Like it just becomes impossible to sort of oversee that many people. You need someone else that like pushes the message,
Right.
basically. But yeah, level 5, I don't think so.
I definitely don't want that much attention.
I don't need. Look, I'm not even trying to get. I'm trying to get no attention with my stuff. Really.
Yeah.
I mean, I make.
I
a
love
lot
that.
of
I love that
content,
Wizard of Oz. Like, you can have some other face up there, but the real person behind the curtains you don't really see.
Yeah. What's funny though is I make all this content. People do. The people that see my stuff, like they sort of have this reaction sometime. Like I can't. Some people are like, I can't believe I'm talking to you. I've listened to all your stuff. I'm just like, all right, that's cool. But even in my business, people don't call really to ask for me that often. They don't really connect. Because even with the content that I make, I don't make it in a way that says like I'm the pro.
Right.
I just talk about the stuff. Does that make sense?
Right.
Like, so I think that helps a little bit, which I've actually not sort of put my thumb on, really.
I've
until
actually
right now.
envisioned having a level 4, level 5 type business in this space, but it is instrumentally very hard to go against the grain of how your industry operates. I wanted to be like the Mayo Clinic of mortgages.
Yep.
Right. But to try to get, in a very heavy commission based world with lots of salespeople, it's really hard to do that against the grain.
Yeah.
I've tried. It's not an easy thing to do.
Yep.
So I just found, which is funny when you listen to the story of the Mayo Clinic, the original Dr. Mayo never aspired to have that, never got anything close to that, always very high touch. And it was his sons that actually took it to that next level.
Yeah.
So I'm probably more like the original Dr. Mayo.
Yep.
Just want to run my little clinic,
Yep.
getting swooned by the Sisters of St. Mary's to try to help them with their new hospital, and really just was planning on running your own little thing, right?
Yep.
That's much more me.
Yeah, I think the other thing to remember too is, and you mentioned, you touched on this like briefly, but this is each of these levels are skills that are really attained over time.
Yeah.
You can't rush getting to level 4.
And some people
sometimes
might
it
be a
just
positional
happens.
leader. There's people who have for sure been positional leaders for decades longer than me, and they never go past level 1, 2, because they just, like I mentioned, they never aspire to be better leaders. They have no idea the shit stinks. They have no idea how
Right.
bad they are as leaders, and they've never been in a position for someone to tell them.
Right. I think some of that, yes, you're right. I think some of that too is awareness. They probably don't even care.
Yeah.
They're just fine where they are,
Right.
and that's okay. But like even these,
Or sometimes they're not fine with what they are, but they'll never know. They think it's everyone else's fault because they can't ever recognize what they're doing wrong.
100%. Yep. But I mean, like you look at these coaching trees, to get to level 4, it takes a long time
Yeah.
because you got to, first of all, you got to prove it on your own, right? You got to get to level 3, which also takes a lot of time.
Yeah.
Most of the
And
time.
if it's a really competitive stage, getting just to level 3 on a very competitive stage already means a lot.
Yeah.
Like think about who we called level 3, Peyton Manning.
Right.
Peyton Manning's in level 3. Right.
Nick
Man.
Saban.
Yeah. Right.
Excuse me. Yep. So, yeah, I think though it is for me.
I say Saban's 4. He's good. He's good to have his own tree. We have to look at what it is, but
He does have a 4, but I mean what I meant about level 3 though is just the players. People want to come play for him because he wins championships.
I think even people who hold a positional role in that team but never go beyond being a player in that team, but have a positional player in that team can be that.
Yeah.
Like, I think that's where Michael Jordan struggled with being a coach, but he was a great player.
Yeah.
He was as high level 3 as you could be.
For sure.
He for sure produced. And people hated playing with him, but they won because of him. He pushed them.
Correct. He didn't make other people great though necessarily. Right?
No, he did squeeze the most out of them in the role that they're in, but he wouldn't.
But it was like a force of nature. It wasn't wasn't like they.
That's the highest level of 3 you can get.
It wasn't like they got better.
He made them
They
play
just
better.
played as hard as they could.
He played. Yes. Yeah. But the thing you got to give him though is that at least where he did touch on level 4 is where when there was a great player who did ask for him for help, he did help. He was instrumental in helping people like Kobe.
Yeah.
But it also took someone like Kobe to constantly keep asking too, right? So it's really a blend.
Right.
So yeah, I think he's a really good example of the highest level 3 you can get.
And yes, and Michael Jordan, by the way, we're just not talking to anyone.
Yeah.
That was Kobe.
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
Yeah.
So like if you weren't demonstrating your own greatness, I think Michael Jordan would be like. Eh.
But if you hear the story, Kobe asked them for help literally the first time they played. Like they played, he was grinding against them, and then asked them something. He gave the answer, and then he traded phone numbers, and he said he would text them all the time, like from that first time.
Yeah, I know, but you could tell.
Yeah.
I mean, you could tell, right?
Yeah.
But yeah, so yeah, that's cool. Yeah, I think it's important to be in, as I sort of like my team got bigger, I became very intentional about what skills do I need to build to make this work.
Right.
Leadership was one, and management is also one.
Mm-hmm.
They're not exactly the same. They kind of come together.
Right.
Management is more for me like team meetings and creating systems around
Vision
people
is
working
is
together.
knowing where we want to go. Management is watching everyone make it happen.
Yeah.
And making sure that the tasks, the meetings, the whatever,
Yeah.
and the metrics are met to make it happen.
But those are two things where I was like, look, I don't have any experience really in management. I mean, leaders, like some sports type of stuff, but it's nothing like we're talking about today necessarily, right? I mean, so, it's something that you want to learn. You want to, again, you just want to be intentional about what you're doing and get better. Read these type of books. Listen when people give you feedback too, because sometimes you don't understand how you are perceived.
Right.
And
I'm sure Max will talk about his other books, and this could be a whole other episode, but we'll just make this a closing thought.
Yeah.
I think the most important thing in a leader, this is sometimes the most influential moment you can have with your people, is how to discipline. To not only get the result you want, but influence the person at the same time.
Yep.
Right. The best example I can give that I personally have done is that when I've taken on coaching a new person, and it works best when they have children, if they're self-employed and I give them prospecting sheets and they send it to me, and I see this lackluster horse shit with all these names missing, I'll ask them, I say, when you used to work for someone else, was it normal that you would get disciplined and then fired? And they usually answer no. Like, okay, have you ever been fired from a job before? Maybe once when they were a kid, but very usually they're good employees.
Yeah.
Like, okay. When the boss asked you to do things, did you do it? Yes. Did you ever choose not to do it? Not show up on time, not do what you're supposed to? No. Okay. So the biggest mistake most people make when they become self-employed is they think they're the boss and that there's no one accountable to, and so then they give this kind of like shit result, right? But here's the problem. If there's someone that you're responsible for taking care of, they're technically your boss because it's your job to take care of them. And they're the ones who are watching to see if you're doing your job. So what you're telling me is that when you work for some person who only cares about how much you can help their bottom line, you're going to work your ass off. But when you're working for yourself and more importantly for your spouse and your kids, you're going to be the shittiest employee you've ever been. That's what I'm looking at, right?
Yep.
And so you have to decide if you're going to be that person who, when the people that matter to you most are on the line, you're going to put your worst result because they love you enough to not hold you accountable. Is that the person you're going to be? And usually the response I'll get from someone is usually sometimes it's more often not they start to tear up a little bit. And the next time we get together, that shit is fucking full.
Yep. That's
a disciplinary act. But it's not about what just they're doing wrong, but understanding why they need to change the way they see it. I think the key to that discussion is really how do you change the way they see it? And that's where things really shift. Talk about in the slide edge, right? It's like habits. Yeah. People say you need to do things for 20 days to have a habit to make it consistent. But you have to change your way of thinking and your philosophy and the way you see things. When you change the way you see things, then the habits and the tactics will follow. And so it's important that you shift the way people see things when you have your disciplinary moments. That's a very important part of leadership.
Yep.
Yeah.
Definitely. Great way to wrap it up.
Yep.
Okay, cool. Hope you guys enjoyed this episode. If you did, that's great. Like, comment, follow. If you have questions or, I don't know, want to talk about something, then let us know. Otherwise, that's it for today. I am Chris.
I'm Keane.
And this is the Business Barbershop Podcast. See ya.
See you guys later.